Shut that window, please.
Are we?
Hello, welcome. Can you all hear me? Anybody hear me? Okay, that's good, thank you. As some of you know, I'm back in California. So it's morning, late morning for us, about 10:30. And I was reading in the newspaper that there's a lot of confusion, I guess, especially in Madrid, as to what are the new rules, what are locked down. Absurd, though, I think was the word that it kept saying. This is absurd, though. This is absurd, though. This is absurd, though. Right before I left on Wednesday, and on Tuesday I took a bike ride, my usual path, and Parque Manzanares was closed. And that word absurdo kind of came to mind. It's like, why that park? You know, there's lots of room to space out, you know, to socially distance and walk along the river. And there were even these little parks that were just like almost in a glorieta, just at intersections of streets, and they were closed. There was a few things I'm like, huh? Anyways, I hope for the best, though. Hope it calms down. So I guess, is there anybody who would like to say something in the room before we meditate? Everybody's just ready to dig right in, or?
It's good to see you again together.
Oh, thank you, Javier. That's saying that. Maybe I'll get a virtual background of us too for those times when we're not together. We can, or a virtual side ground of Anna Monica. Yeah, thank you. So the theme that I thought I would try to offer today is impermanence, anicca. And just I'll just say a couple words about it before we start to meditate. I think it especially came up for me because I was noticing my mind really grasping for some stability, grasping for some solidity, grasping for something dependable, you know, and maybe the transition back from Spain here to the United States, where there's just a whole host of problems as well. I saw my mind wanting some things to be settled, and then just the noticing of that, and noticing how it's not a personal thing, right? It's just causes and conditions are part of being human, that the mind wants these things, even though they're really not obtainable, right? We can never get to a place where everything is perfectly stable, perfectly solid, perfectly dependable. And this teaching, this such important teaching of the Buddha, of the impermanence of all things, kind of resting in that law, right? And resting in my ability to be with things as they change if I just allow myself to relax into it and not try to change it. And it went away. the grasping went away, and I felt much more, interestingly, ironically, I felt much more solid and stable and like life was dependable once I just let go of it having to be that way and just started to become with it as it was. And so yeah, such an important teaching, and we'll talk about it more after we sit. But so one reason we practice vipassana is to see these three characteristics, of which one of them is impermanence, and then impersonal and unsatisfying and unsatisfactoriness. And so just kind of maybe keep it in mind during the practice. We'll do mainly a samadha, calming the mind practice, but at the end, open it up. But just kind of keeping in mind, or maybe having an intention to notice how these little things change, how our thoughts come, they go, our emotions come, they go, feelings in the body come and go. Nothing is really solid. Okay, so that's my little intro. If there are no questions or hands raised, we will begin. So first, let's find a comfortable posture if you haven't found one already. It's recommended that we be comfortable so that we can relax and at the same time have an erect, dignified posture where the back is straight, maybe the head tilted ever so slightly forward to open up the back of the neck and also convey a humble posture, you might say. Relaxation is such an essential part of our practice. And if the body is too tense, it's very difficult to relax the mind. So maybe for this one, just set a little intention, that is a little goal, you might say, for this practice, if you are willing, of being open to the impermanence of all things, all conditioned things. Being open to seeing and experiencing impermanence, anicca. And with that intention in hand, let's find the body, create an embodied presence. Maybe take a deep breath or two to really feel the body. Maybe starting with your awareness, your attention in the belly, feeling the movement of the belly as the air flows in and out. Or you could, like we've been practicing with open awareness, you could infuse the whole body with attention, feel the posture, the sitting body, noticing whatever arises. And for our samatha practice and our vipassana practice, you can use the posture as an anchor, a home base, a place to return to each time you notice that the mind has wandered. And if you want a more focused anchor, we can use the breath. So let's find the breath. Maybe choosing a spot that is comfortable, even pleasant for you, easy to follow the breath. So sometimes people use the belly, the movement of the chest, or the nostrils, the sensation of the breath passing in and out of the nostrils. Or you could follow the whole channel, the whole route of the breath. And then as a third option, as an anchor, you can, if you're not feeling like you want to connect so much with the body, you can use the process of hearing or listening, a receptive waiting for sounds to come to you. It can be very pleasant. It's also very conducive to the practice of awareness of awareness. So try to pick one of these three options as your anchor, coming back to it gently but firmly, trying not to judge, having compassion if you can't seem to stay with the anchor very long. It's okay, we're just practicing. Coming back again and again as many times as we need to. And noticing how things come and how they go. For some thoughts, it may make sense to just let them play out and then let them go. For others, we can just release them. If you're having difficulty with that and you want to use labels, these can be supportive. Labeling the breath, inhaling, exhaling, labeling when you notice you're thinking, returning, inhaling, exhaling. If you are still experiencing a lot of thought, maybe some sticky obsessions, you can try moving the awareness into the body, especially the torso, the chest, and trying to see if you can identify any sensations, bodily sensations that might be connected to the thought. And if you do, just try to experience those sensations, feel them, notice them, and probably watch them diminish and disappear. And then you might notice that the thoughts are less sticky. If you are feeling a little more calm, or the mind is a little more calm, a little more stable, concentrated, and you'd like to practice a form of vipassana that we often call choiceless attention or choiceless awareness. With this practice, you can allow whatever arises most obviously to be your anchor. And then when something else arises that's more obvious, or the first one fades away, you can let that be your anchor. So you might notice that you're moving from bodily sensations, maybe body part is asleep or there's some pain, to the breath, to sounds, to thoughts, just allowing the mind to go with whatever is obvious, and then you are aware of that. You're attentive to that. And then you notice the impermanence, how things come, they stay a while, and they go. And if nothing is more obvious than your original anchor, the breath, or whatever, you can just stay with that until something does arise. Or you can keep practicing the samadha practice as well. So for the final couple minutes of our formal practice, let's return to the body. So letting go of whatever your anchor may have been, wherever your mind may have been, reinfusing, reconnecting with the body, maybe going back to the belly, reestablishing that embodied presence. And maybe imagining that you can infuse the body with awareness. Maybe even imagining you can extend your awareness, your attention a little bit beyond your physical form into your energetic body, into your field of awareness, and just kind of holding yourself that way, or holding the body, holding the posture, giving it an awareness hug or bath. Maybe you might notice some different sensations that weren't there before, a little tingling maybe. And then taking a moment to recall, to remind yourself, to thank yourself for practicing in this way, reminding ourselves that although this may seem like a rather selfish or solitary practice, that it is probably the best thing we can do, not only for ourselves, but for those around us, our loved ones, our friends, our family, our pets, and beyond. As I often credit Jack Kornfield as saying that the reason we practice is to open the heart. And so also reminding yourself, recalling that there are others on this call as well, and that we are not practicing alone, we're practicing in Sangha, community, held by each other, supporting each other. And when you hear the sound of the bell, just noticing, as always, what arises, watching whatever arises pass away. Thank you all very much. It's funny how it feels a little bit different from when I was doing it in my apartment in Madrid. I'm also much more conscious of the street noise here. Our place in San Francisco is in a rather busy barrio, and It's a lot more, although so is my apartment in Madrid, although it just seems quieter there. I don't know, compared to here. Anyways, maybe we'll start. Well, first, I want to, for those of you who are aware of the doorbell, we live above another apartment, another home, and they're a younger couple who very much takes advantage of e-commerce, and they must get deliveries, I don't know how many times a day, even though they're not there a lot of times. So then after the delivery person rings their bell some number of times, then they ring our bell. Thank you for getting, what was it? UPS?
They got air purifiers, which is funny because that's what we're expecting as well with the wildfires. So better that it not be left on the street.
Should have grabbed it.
And the same brands, I feel.
Oh, okay.
Good, made a good choice.
Yeah, in addition to COVID here in the Bay Area and California, we're dealing with bad air because of all the fires. And so first, I'm curious if anybody has any comments or questions that they'd like to make about the practice that we did, or your home practice, anything related to meditation. Mark, please.
Jim? Hi. I've got a question. It's something that's just kind of consistently I've wondered about, and it sounds like I'm complaining about Buddhism, which I'm not. I'm not, but I just want to ask the question. The way that Vipassana is translated as insight, it is always a little bit frustrating to me, as if it creates the expectation that after, in a guided group setting, after 20 minutes of the samadhi practice, then you're going to switch gears and do something that's going to give you an insight. Like I should change jobs, or, you know, I'm the path I'm leading in life is completely, you know, misguided or something like that. Because that's what an insight is usually thought of as, an aha moment, or a eureka moment. And I tend to find that my thoughts are just as stupid and random, you know, in that part of the meditation as they are in the first part of the meditation. So I'm just looking for a little bit of guidance and reassurance about that transition from one stage to the other. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Thank you for the question. First, I would say that the translation of Vipassana as insight is probably not a very good translation at all. I think the word insight is a Western, you know, world concept that was applied to an Eastern world and word. And I think Vipassana really means to see things clearly. At least that's my understanding. That would be a better translation, would be to see things as they really are, rather than an insight. And yeah, the way you described insight is how we often think of insights. You know, we could have little insights into our daily lives, and we could have, you know, ginormous insights into the way things are. And as I understand it, the practice of Vipassana is to see things as they really are, mainly in three ways. And these are three ways that, once realized or really understood, lead to liberation from suffering. And that is that everything is impermanent, that everything is unsatisfying, and that everything is not personal. Right? Anicca, dukkha, anatta. That's what we are practicing to experience, to see, which you could say to have an insight into. But, you know, it's funny, in Spanish, I don't believe there even is a word for insight either. It's an English word, right? Which maybe saves them from the confusion, the Spanish speakers. But it's really to see things clearly. And so thank you for your question, because that kind of leads into what I want to talk about today, is this first one, which is anicca, which impermanence, which really does also influence and allow for the realization of the other two as well. Really, anicca is the foundation for all three of them, really. And I'll explain a little bit about that. So starting with anicca, which is impermanence. And for those of you who have taken a Goenka retreat, you probably remember this word, because Goenka, maybe some of you are lucky to have actually done it in person, but in his videos, which is how I did it, he's always talking about anicca. That's essentially the Goenka practice, is to see the impermanence of all things. And to kind of bring it kind of where I was before the meditation, what I was talking about was how things seem very unstable right now to me. They seem very impermanent, right? There's very little predictability as to where we're going. There's a lot of uncertainty in the whole world. It seems like if there ever was a good time to kind of realize or have an insight about impermanence, it's right now, right? Nothing is very permanent. Although, then the thought came into my mind is this COVID seems kind of impermanent. It's like, won't you go away? You've been here now for, what has it been? 6-7 months. So sometimes we can see it, on this grand scale, how things just are constantly changing. Nothing is solid, nothing is certain, nothing is permanent. And sometimes on the big scale, it's too overwhelming, or it's too difficult to see it in that way. And it's easier to see it on a more micro level, such as our thoughts. Noticing how our thoughts, like Mark was talking about, how his thoughts are not much different in the samadha part of the practice as the vipassana. They're just kind of coming and, sort of random and, and staying a bit and leaving. Very impermanent. Same with our emotions. How often does an emotion stick around for more than a minute or two, or even less, right? I mean, they just kind of come and go. Or they may come, they go a while, they come again, they go a while. And once and intellectually, I think this one is not too difficult to get. I found that this particular teaching was relatively easy for me to get intellectually, as opposed to the unself or non-self, the third one, anatta, that nothing is personal. That one took a while, but I'm gonna explain here in a second how one can influence the other, and how it can help us achieve, probably in some people's minds, the most important of all of them, which is like emptiness, which is there's no self. Some people consider that the most important teaching of the Buddha. When we're able to, let's say, accept for just this moment, okay, maybe we don't know it deep down into our DNA, but we can accept that nothing is personal, or excuse me, that nothing is permanent, that nothing is predictable or solid. All conditioned items are impermanent. Maybe we can kind of relax into the flow of life, how life seems to really just kind of unfold when we're present with it moment by moment by moment, like our meditation, right? It just kind of, things just kind of come and they kind of go, and they kind of come and they kind of go. The big picture manifest life is like that as well. And when we can kind of get into that flow, it is possible you could also have an insight or a realization or a seeing that there really is no self either. There's no fixed me here, right? There's just this unfolding of moments, moment by moment. And when we realize that there's no real solid, permanent, everlasting self, and that there's nothing permanent, solid to hold on to, guess what? We start to let go. We stop grasping. And this is the cause of our suffering. It's the grasping. The cause of our suffering is not that, I had a joke, because I know in Spanish, when you say a word like what I'm going to do, you have to use sino que. And it was funny how sino que arose in my mind. It is not that the world is impermanent that causes us to suffer, sino que it's that we want it to be solid, right? The problem is that we want things to be different than they are. We want the world to be solid. We want the world to be dependable. We want the world to be predictable. We want the world to be stable, but it isn't. And this is what causes us to suffer. We cling to wanting it to be different than it is. So in our practice, if we can start to be with the flow of thoughts that keep coming up, and how the mind is distracted and it goes from this thing to that thing. If we can start to be with that exactly as it is, then we equip ourselves to be in this crazy world that we live in exactly as it is. And we suffer much, much less. The world isn't going to change. I mean, maybe in our immediate arounds, it might change a little, right? With our family and so forth. But more or less, the world's going to stay the same, but we're not going to be fighting with it. And, and of course, well, for some, and I think the reason, Mark, insight is often used is because some people in long retreat, like I had this experience where on day 23 of a long retreat, I had an experience that I would call an insight. I mean, it kicked my ass, right? It only went on for about 30 seconds or whatever it was, 45 seconds, but it was one of those that re-scrambled my DNA. I have not been the same since. Those feel like an insight, but all it was into the emptiness of all things. It just kind of came. But normally, and Guy Armstrong, by the way, and I know Chema, you talked about, is that here in San Francisco, I happen to have the hardcover of this book. And I think he even, is this one he signed for me? Or no, maybe, no. I think I have one he even signed it. But most of the time, these realizations, darse cuentas, right? They come poco a poco, a little bit at a time, right? Sometimes we're lucky and something is, boom, it's big and deep and DNA changing, but a lot of times it's just poco a poco. But if you look back maybe a year ago, I bet you could do that. Look back a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, then you can really start to see the difference. How we've started to let go. How we started to accept things more as they are rather than how we want them to be. Make sure I don't got time. So there's a couple other points that I want to bring up around this that I think are very important. So you've probably heard the term, the three jewels. Okay, the Dharma, the teaching, or the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, right? So we can find refuge, and in fact, in many, well, for sure in meditation retreats, but even in some little 1.5 hour long ones like this, people will often start with a chant to the three refuges or the three jewels, right? Which is the Buddha, our Buddha nature, that nature we all have, the Dharma, the teachings, the law, and the Sangha, our community. So what I have found and what is available to all of us is within these three jewels, within the teachings, is some stability, right? Is some dependability, is some foundation, right? And within our Sangha, this is one of the most important teachings of the Buddha, is to find like-minded people and befriend them and hang out with them and, like that. And to connect with our Buddha nature, that nature that we all have, to be kind and loving and compassionate towards ourselves and others. So, here in the United States, I have a lot of old friends that I've had for, 30, some of them 35, 40 years, right? And so we connect, and we often will talk about politics, right? And we'll get into it. And I have friends that are to the left of me, friends are to the right of me, friends are way in the hell out there. My brother, he's as crazy as Donald Trump as far as I'm concerned. But because of my causes and conditions, I really don't believe I really know, based on my own causes and conditions, what the right answer is. And so what I've done over the last, number of years is I fall back on the Dharma. I fall back on the Buddhist teachings. And there I feel so confident that this is the right answer in any situation. Right? In any situation I come across, there is an answer within the Dharma. It's all there. And then, so just the more I learn, the more comfort I have to just live within the teachings of the Buddha, within the Dharma. Again, this isn't changing the fact that things are impermanent. This is part of the teachings. But at least there's a place to go where, okay, that's why it is like it is. This is one of the laws of karma, that actions have consequences. This is another one that can be very supportive, really, right? In the law of intention, this is where karma comes from in the Buddhist philosophy, is our volition, our intention. What do we intend, our thoughts? So it's not just what we do, it's what we think and what we say. And then another one I just really love is causes and conditions, which, as I mentioned before, in the law of dependent origination in Buddhism, nothing arises just randomly, just out of nowhere. Every conditioned thing arises as a result of causes and conditions that precede it. And this gives me all sorts of self-compassion. When I look at the causes and conditions of my life, how I grew up, who my parents were, the schools I went to, and all this kind of stuff, it helps me explain some of the crazy shit that comes in, enters into my brain, right? It's just like some of my thoughts are definitely not worth saying out loud. Absolutely. And they're, but I have more self-compassion towards myself, because I can look at the path that got me here and the type of teachings that came my way and so forth. And okay, that makes a lot of sense that you would have that crazy of a thought, right? So it's another teaching that I find very supportive. Another one that I like very much is the very first of our Noble Eightfold Path, and that's right view. Seeing things clearly, which is the three characteristics. It's also seeing the law of karma. But I can also extend it out a little bit. We talked about this last week, to see things around me as well. And to hopefully see them with clear eyes, It's like there's a book and another practice called A New Pair of Glasses. That's the name of the book. And it's after you learned about this particular teaching, which was the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, stuff like that. It's like putting on a new pair of glasses. You could see more clearly. In the Buddhist time, I'm not sure they had glasses. Maybe they did, I don't know. But when the Buddha was first awakened, he didn't think that people would understand. And so he wasn't going to teach. And he was counseled by one of the deities that they believe existed that, no, there are people out there with little dust on their eyes, very little dust, poco polvo, right? And they will understand. I think it was on their eyes, dust on their eyes, right?
In their eyes.
Huh?
In their eyes.
In their eyes, yeah. And so in a way, I see this path also as, constantly kind of cleaning the glasses and get them clearer and clearer so we can see things more clearly, see things as they really are. And this not only helps us let go, which is key, but it also helps us just make decisions, like those little insights that Mark was talking about of, do I get a new job? Do I move? Where do I live? Who do I hang out with? These little things, when there's less dust on our eyes, when our glasses are clear, when we see things more clearly, we can make better decisions. It's just kind of natural, right? Okay, let me see. I made some notes because I didn't want to forget. Yeah, maybe I'll just stop there. I have a couple more notes, but are there any questions or anybody who would like to say something or maybe have an example in your life? No?
Hi, Jim. Yes, I have a question.
Yes, Denise.
I would like to ask you, how can somebody relate, you were talking about impermanence and these kind of things. How can you relate with a healthy situation, like when somebody has a chronic disease and chronic pain? Like, how can the Buddha teachings help to go through that situation?
Yes, that's a very good question. And there are people in the Buddhist world who they specialize in this. They specialize in applying the Buddhist teachings to chronic pain. Even the Buddha had chronic pain. He had a bad back. And sometimes he couldn't even do his Dharma talk. He would just have to go and lay down and so forth. I've been, for most of my life, pretty lucky to not have chronic pain, but I had developed this sinus issue, which doesn't go away. So it's allowed me to see a little more clearly into the chronic pain. Okay, like everything, there really are two forms of pain. There's the regular physical pain, which we all have. Some people unfortunately have it chronically and it doesn't go away. And then there's the second one, which we often call suffering, which is the dukkha. And that is caused by wanting the chronic pain to go away, wanting the chronic pain to be different. And there's even a contemporary teacher who uses a mathematical formula to describe how, with chronic pain, he uses numbers, right? With chronic pain multiplied by resistance, you get suffering. So let's say your chronic pain is 5 on a scale of 1 to 10, and your resistance to that is also 5. Now you're suffering at a level of 25. But if you can get your resistance to it to say 1, in other words, accept it as it is, then you only suffer at the level of 5, same as your pain, which probably is bearable. Now, what can really get crazy and magical is if you could get into a samadhi state, let's say in retreat, you can actually get the resistance to 0. And when you take 5 multiplied by 0, guess what you got? 0. It's unbelievable. It can actually go away where you don't even notice your pain. And there was a young, I've been to 3 long-term retreats where there was a young German lady on those same retreats who suffers from a very severe chronic illness that probably will end her life, at a very young age. She's not even in her 30s yet, I don't think. But she goes because I believe anyways, because she's able to achieve that sometimes, that zero. And she doesn't feel the pain. I mean, I've seen her sometimes eating. Oh, it's painful to watch just how much difficulty she's in. So that's one thing, is to be aware of your aversion, your resistance to the chronic pain, to try to embrace the chronic pain. Now, what I do with my nose, sometimes my nose, it feels like it's going to go, just blow up. So I put my attention in, I let it be my object. It is my anchor, and I'll just feel it. And usually, almost always, within a short amount of time, it mellows out, because it's kind of like I'm sort of loving it. I'm giving it attention. I'm embracing it. I'm not trying to push it away. And it just seems to go down every single time. So to kind of summarize, I think it's about embracing that chronic pain and not fighting it. It's just part of your life, this particular person's life, their causes and conditions, and to love it as well as much as possible, the chronic pain, maybe even talk to it a little bit. Don't believe that our meditation practice means no talking, no thinking, stuff like that. Sometimes words can be very helpful. Like I had knee surgeries. I used to be a runner, and I had surgeries and finished my running career, the surgeries. But during yoga, I would often kiss my knee. I would kiss it and I would embrace it. And after a while, I think my knee just felt loved, and it doesn't really hurt. I don't run, but, I could sit cross-legged and, stuff like that. So that would be how I would, and there's many more answers. There's, like I said, there's people who specialize in that particular thing. But I would say, watch out for the aversion, watch out for the resistance. And if you can, maybe counsel this person. If it's like your mother, forget it. She's not going to probably do it. But, but that's what we want to do. Embrace the pain. Embrace the pain.
Thanks a lot. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, anyone else like to say something or? Okay, yeah, Javier, unmute yourself.
Hello, I want to share my experience in the meditation of today. Today I am feeling anxiety, and during the meditation, the feeling of the anxiety was very hard. So I can watch my resistance to the anxiety, but I can't I can letting go the resistance. So in one moment, I send love to myself, I embrace to the anxiety, and then I can calm and say yes to the experience. So
you did that, huh? You sent love to the anxiety?
Yes.
Very good.
Calm and be, yes. Mm-hmm.
Excellent. That's beautiful. There you go. There you go. That's how we can do it. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, this is sometimes hard to do, right? But it works. And we can develop new habits, new ways of being, we're like Javier. We send love to our anxiety. I mean, who would have thought? It sounds kind of corny, right? But it works. It's almost like every one of these little things, or these things are like little beings. Even our anxiety is a little being. It's got needs, it's got wants, it's got emotions. It wants to be loved. You send it some love, and then, it feels seen, it feels heard, it relaxes. It's quite amazing. And it goes to the emptiness of all things, right? It goes to the not self. We're just a bunch of flowing energies, emotions, thoughts, just kind of going like this, you know? And nature has made us with an ability to give ourselves empathy, to give ourselves love. We can do this. We can give it to ourselves, we can give it to our anxiety, we can give it to our chronic pain, and we can give it to others. And that's really what meditation in a way is. It's giving ourselves an empathy bath, right? We're just listening kindly and just offering ourselves empathy. Great. Okay, why don't we do a little metta, right? Loving kindness meditation, which can come in handy, just if you're feeling a little tense or angry with somebody, may I be happy. May they be happy. It works. Okay, so find yourself a comfortable posture. So maybe take a second and just re-embody our awareness. Feeling the body, feeling the heart center. So let's start with ourself. In these difficult times, we could do this many times a day. It would be totally appropriate. May I be happy. So you can just say that to yourself. May I be happy. May I be well. May I be safe. May I live with ease. So now let's offer some loving kindness, goodwill, metta to somebody you feel close to, a loved one, or maybe somebody working on the front lines of the pandemic, sacrificing, taking risk for the benefit of others. Somebody where you can really easily offer them some goodwill. May you be happy. May you be well. May you be safe. May you live with ease. And now let's try offering goodwill, loving kindness to a difficult person. Somebody in your life maybe who just can't seem to stop resisting, right? They're just fighting all the time, fighting. Or maybe somebody who hurt your feelings, said something mean, or maybe you have a resentment towards somebody. See if you can bring that person to mind, and we'll offer them metta. May you be happy. May you be well. May you be safe. May you live with ease. And finally, to all beings in all directions, without exceptions, Just imagine that metta can radiate out from our physical form. May all beings be happy. May all beings be well. May all beings be safe. May all beings live with ease. And finally, we'll dedicate our practice, share our practice with all beings, share the teachings, the Dhamma, the Dharma, our Buddha nature and our Sangha. Sending that out. May all beings be happy and peaceful, healthy and strong, safe and protected. May all beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering, free from war and violence and racism and prejudice, and free from coronavirus. And may all beings find their refuges, find their jewels, find their path leading towards freedom, leading towards the end of suffering. Well, thank you very much. Denise, I see you have your hand raised. I don't know if you have a question, but we're willing to keep the Zoom call going. If you guys would like to break into some small groups for a little bit, share with each other, just kind of see who's there when that happens. As some of you probably know, on our meetup group, there are offerings, I think, almost every day of the week in Spanish, the majority. But if you're looking for other sanghas and other practice, I know Chema's on this call. Yeah, he teaches twice a week, and Nacho, and so there's still lots of good things out there despite COVID-19. So that's from Dem. Bye, Damien. Good to see you guys. Okay, so I'll set it up in some small groups, and you guys can share. Here we go. Maybe I could put you in one if you want to be, Anna Monica.
I don't want to be in my own.
Huh?
I don't need to be in my own. Are you going to be in one?
I usually don't. I usually observe, but I'm letting. Well, you can, but then in that moment. So let's see. Julieta is without anybody, so I will put her in room 2. Ooh, there's 4, 3, and 3.
Noon.
Nice. That's nice. Oh, it looks like we're in 2.
We are?
No, but it looks, because the line from this thing here looks like you're over there.
Yawning up a storm.
Huh?
Are we in something?
No, we're just.
Because I have class at
we're
1.
in.